Bismillah, alhamdulillah, thumma salatu salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. All praise and thanks due to Allah and peace be upon His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace unto you. I would like to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who gave us this great opportunity. And also I would like to thank my co-host, brother Shahid Jazakallah Khair, an American Muslim Institute. Jazakallah Khair, and also our panelists, Brother Keith Ellison and Brother Joy. We are here tonight to discuss how can we help and to explain our Muslim organization is our non-profit, our Islamic centers, how they can benefit and to apply and to understand the government assistance. At this time, we are dealing with coronavirus, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save all of us and all the humanity from the coronavirus and all harm. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure all the sickness anywhere they are and to save our lives and our people and our officials who are serving day and night and protecting all of us. Special thanks to my Attorney General, Brother Keith Ellison, my former congressman who representing a lot, and he's the people's attorney, and he's a great brother. Anytime we need him, anytime the people of Minnesota and the nation is there. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, alhamdulillah. So Sheikh, thank you all for having me. What I would do, if it's okay, is to make a few preliminary comments, then to answer whatever questions. But I want to let you know that inshallah, we're ready. I'm ready to meet with you anytime. Well, that means we could do some follow-ups if we need to, but it's important to stay in communication because right now, I just can't show up at the masjid and you just can't show up at the Capitol. We're all kind of restricted. So it's important for us to use technology to stay in touch as much as we can, inshallah. Anyway, as everyone knows, the coronavirus has struck the nation. It's struck a lot of places. In fact, I don't know if you all know this, but my mother passed away about on March 24th. And it was related to this, right? And so this is a very close thing to me. It touches all families, and I only mention this to you is because I want to ask you to urge the brothers and sisters to take it seriously. It's not a joke. It's real. And, right now we're seeing the worst days out there, and many of the communities that we represent are some of the most vulnerable people, a lot of senior citizens, a lot of people who have had illnesses, a lot of working class poor people, a lot of insured people, are folks who we represent directly. And so this is an important thing for us to communicate with. And I will tell you that spiritual leadership is needed right now. People have a lot of misunderstanding as to what's going on, and your leadership is critical at this moment. So thank you for calling us. Let me just say, there are a number of things that need to happen. One is that we need to make demands of the government that reflect the needs of the people. And I don't know what all those things are, but you do. And so when you all get together in your meetings, it would be good to come up with a letter to the governor, which you would send to me and everybody on the executive council and tell us all, here's what we need. And so that was one thing I think we should do. Let me go over a few preliminaries. As you know, COVID-19 started in China, began to spread throughout the world. Very difficult challenges in countries outside of China. Iran hit very hard. Italy, we know that hit hard. Spain hit hard. And now this is really beginning to ramp up in the United States. Because we can talk about whose fault it is and all that, but because actions were not taken as quickly as they could have been, and testing was not done as fast as it should have been, we're seeing devastating losses. We had the executive order, the shelter-in-place order come in, And then the governor began to issue additional executive orders to try to do two things. One, protect the public health. Two, protect the economic health. Both are at play here. And so the governor, under Minnesota Statutes number 12, Minnesota Statutes 12, has the authority to invoke emergency powers in peacetime if certain criteria are met, like a pandemic. The governor is not a law unto himself. He has to have all of his decisions approved by the executive council. I'm on the executive council. So is the lieutenant governor. So is the secretary of state. So is the state auditor. Every few days we meet and we approve or not of proposals that the governor has made, and that has gone on. So far, we have not said no to any of them because they all seem reasonable. But there are things like extension of unemployment benefits, putting in a anti-price gouging to stop people from price gouging, put in other things in place to try to make sure that we deal with the public health on the one hand and the economic stability on the other hand. The imams can make proposals to this group. In fact, a group made a proposal to just today saying that after the coronavirus shelter in place is over, what about all the rent that's going to be due by people who don't have jobs? Can the government help? What can happen? And so they're making proposals, and so I encourage you to make those same proposals. Now, the state legislature did pass a piece of legislation with about $200 million in it. It would be a grant fund, small business fund, and the masjid can apply because to help deal with the challenges that the ummah is facing, such as things like food. People might come to the masjid for food. People might come to the masjid for various things. Now, exactly how to make the application, I'm going to ask my staff to help me give you that information, but it is important that we give you that information so that you can make application for people who are coming to the masjid for food, for fuel, for various things that they need. And so that is a piece of legislation passed by the legislature for not only emergency assistance for nonprofit groups, but also organizations that do information sharing. And I know some of the members of the minority press have already begun to inquire about that. But I will have to defer to others to give you the information. We can follow up to make sure you get that. So let me just finish up by telling you that my office at the Attorney General has been extremely busy. I've been pulling, 12-hour days consistently because we've had over 900 calls for frauds and scams and price gouging. You may be surprised to hear this, brothers, but some people see a catastrophe like this is an opportunity to cash in. So I've been having to deal with these people. There've been over 900 inquiries at my office, and we've done about 90 secret shopper investigations. So whenever we get a call of a complaint, we send people out to shop there, verify the price gouging, and if they do it, then we take action against them. And we've done over 27 warning letters. We've settled 2 cases. We went to court against a unscrupulous landlord today who tried to, because he couldn't kick somebody out of the house because of the executive order against eviction, he went out there and he shut off the utilities for this family that has a special needs child. So we had to get after him. But this is happening not just in Minneapolis and St. Paul, all over the state. We've had cases in Sandstone. We've had cases all over. So that's what's going on right now. I'm very busy. Please be on the lookout for any kind of hate crimes, particularly against people who are from the Far East. We've seen, because when Trump said Chinese virus, we started seeing a lot of Hmong people, Korean people, and others become targets. We even had one South Asian person, and that was odd, but it happened. And so we're trying to stop these hate crimes too. So we need your help, and we want to connect you with resources that might be available, and just want to meet with you to be able to stay in touch. So that's all I want to say tonight. Jazakallah khair, and thank you all for being there. Last thing I want to say is people are afraid, they don't know what's going on, and they need spiritual guidance at this moment. You all are providing that. I'm grateful for you to do that. Jazakallah khair.
Thanks so much, Brother Keith. May Allah reward you this, and you are serving greatly our state and nationwide, as I said earlier. And our condolences and you know, our prayers to you, to your mother, the loss of your mother. Our condolences and our dua. We are asking Allah to ease you and to give you patience for this hardship. It's personal to you. You are not alone. We lost a lot of members, a lot of people in this tragedy. And thanks for that information you shared with us. And the folks who want to ask questions to our Attorney General Keith Ellison, you can post to the chat line. And I would like to pass now my brother Shahid Rahman. Fadal Akhi.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sheikh Hassan. Attorney General Ellison, our condolences for the loss of your mother. It must be a very difficult time for you right now, and we really appreciate the fact that during this time, you are exuding leadership and courage. And I think for that, the Muslim community, and on behalf of American Muslim Institution, and I think all the panelists, we're grateful for everything you're doing for us as a community. Our organization, AMI, it's based out of DC, and we're focused on shifting some of the narrative as it relates to Islam and Muslims. We've worked with a lot of great thought leaders, but one of the things we've noticed in the last 3 weeks is all of our supporters, all of our donors, all of our well-wishers, they're struggling. And we wanted to know what we could do to help ease some of this tension that they're feeling. And what we wanted to do, obviously, was to organize some webinars for, number one, for people to be connected. We've been isolated for so long.
Right.
We're not really going out. And so that need for connection and brotherhood was one of the major reasons, but also to provide some tangible information and knowledge on what resources are available at the state level and at the federal level. Very helpful, showing leadership and guidance. I hope other states in the Midwest especially are taking suit. And and by the way, I just want to let everybody know, the Q&A section is also open. So please feel free to put any questions you have for the congressman. And most of these are, most of the comments are condolences for your family, Attorney General. So is there anything, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, all I was going to say is that, you know, as many of you know, I took Shahada at the age of 19. My mother was a very devout Catholic, right? And was until she died. And, but she was a very great admirer of Islam, right? She embraced my Islam. She changed the whole diet and the menu around to accommodate me. You know, she was a person, a lot of people would think, hey man, you know, they thought my mother was, they thought she was born and raised Muslim, even though she wasn't. She acted like it so much that they thought she was. And so I just wanted to share that with you all. She was a very great, you know, at embracing all people, making everyone feel welcome and included. And, you know, so I just thought I'd share that with you. Sorry about that little break there. But since folks were mentioning her, I thought she has an obituary out there. You can just look up Clyde Ellison. It's right there. So if you feel like reading it, I would invite you to do so.
Fantastic. We'll definitely do that. I'm checking the Q&A. I'm not sure if you can help with this, Attorney General, but let's give it a shot. As I think a lot of the questions actually are related to some of about the CARES Act. Would you be able to try to navigate some of those questions?
Yeah, let me see what I can do. I mean, the truth is, I'm not in Congress anymore. But you know what? Like I said, we're not limited to this call. I'm sure that inshallah we can get Ilhan on the call. We can get Rashida on the call. We can get people on the call to answer any set of questions that we have. But the CARES Act, is that the $2 trillion bill? Yeah. So yeah, let's see what we can do. But if I don't have the answer, I'll just say I'm not sure about that one, and we'll get the right people in place.
So let me start with one thing. I mean, I know one of the things that we've seen in the Northeast is a lot of the local unemployment agencies have almost collapsed. They're not able to handle the sheer
Right.
number. How are you guys doing in Minnesota?
Well, we're doing the best we can, right? You know, Minnesota, I think we're up to about 33 or 4 deaths and several hundred cases. We're not nearly as bad off as, say, New York. You mentioned the Northeast. New York is in bad shape, man. And Detroit has been hit pretty hard too. So, you know, folks need more, they need help, you know, and what I would say that as the Islamic clergy and the social justice community, we need to just send letters to these governors. I mean, I'm glad that you shared this with me because it's something I could pass along as well. But nobody is managing this particularly well, brother. It's just, I mean, that's just the truth. That's why we have to flatten the curve, right? And that's why, as Attorney General in Minnesota, I'm being very aggressive against people who are trying to rip off and take advantage of people. We've seen frauds associated with unemployment insurance. So that's an issue, but I wish I had a better answer for you. The truth is, there's not one state in this union that can say that they're doing great handling the large volume of applications for unemployment insurance, including Minnesota. We've gotten the same number of applications in a month that we usually get in a year.
And the month isn't over yet, right? It's only.
That's right. That's right.
What I'd appreciate if Keon, I think the Attorney General mentioned a couple of websites, some valuable resources for the state. Would you mind typing them into either the Q&A bar or the chat bar so people will know? So if people are gouging, where should they go, Attorney General Ellison? And Keon, maybe
Right.
you can fit it in.
Yeah, Keon, you could put that in there in writing, and I'll just tell folks, go to 651-296 3353, 651-296-3353. But also contact your Attorney General's office. In New York, you got Tish James. She's awesome. In Massachusetts, you got Maura Healy. She's really good. In DC, you've got Carl Racine. He's really good. So I would say that there's a number of AGs stepping up to the plate. But they're not dealing with the public health side of it. They're dealing with the economic side of it. And both are important, but please use them as a resource. Now, in terms of going online, ag.state.mn.us. And Keon will put that in writing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Brother Keith, Brother Shahid, can I go ahead? Or? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Brother Keith. Jazakallah khair again. As you know, AYANA, I didn't mention, AYANA is Islamic Association of North America, a nationwide umbrella organization with over 35 organizations and Islamic centers, and standing to meet the religious and social needs of Muslim society in America. There is a great question right now. There is a big frustration with Islamic leaders and especially the imams and the board members, the Islamic centers. As you know, we have a great number of mosques and Islamic centers in Minnesota, and mainly they provide religious services and weekend Islamic education.
Right.
All Islamic centers and the mosque shut down. As you know, as AYANA, we shut down at the beginning of March. You know, we had a national emergency meeting and we closed all our centers.
It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, we took the right decision. So as you know, we don't have that much social services that we can apply government aid, which is, you know, circular school or food, you know, and hospitality and so on. So as you said, as the executive committee and as Attorney General, is there a way we can help emergency aid or any fund for the mosques and Islamic centers? As we know, the Ramadan is approaching, and now we need a lot of spiritual education. There is a lot of conferences and Zoom is going on. And, the imams and the leaders of the mosque, they are working day in, day out. We work, from home 10 hours, 12 hours, 13 hours, answering the question and teaching, the children at home and the families. So what you can help, what, you and the governor and the state of Minnesota, what can you do for the Islamic centers?
Well, let me tell you this. The group of the Minnesota Council of Foundations and charities have been approaching the governor to try to get some relief. If I were you, I'd work with those other foundations and charitable groups. I also would send a letter to say, look, what about us? We feed a lot of people. We educate a lot of people. We take care of a lot of people. And now we need help. We need you to communicate and reach out just like you're doing right now. And of course, I will carry the message forward. But here's the problem, Sheikh. Things are tough all over, man. You know that. Nobody has any sort of easy answers at this point, right? But we do need to know what it is that you need, and communicating like you are right now is critical. So if you could just send over a letter to my office, to the governor, sort of laying out what would be a proposal. I can't promise you that we can take care of everything, but we'll try, and we'll see, and we'll do our best.
Thank you. We will do that.
All right.
I'll coordinate with other imams and other Islamic organizations in Minnesota, and we will send you a proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think those are all the questions, Attorney General Ellison. We really, on behalf of all the panelists, we really appreciate you for all your time. We also want to be very respectful of your time. We also see that you have an amazing view behind you, so we'd love for you to enjoy that view at least. While we all work from home, at least you're taking advantage of nature. So again, thank you on behalf of everyone, and you're more than welcome to stay on while we.
Okay, well, let me just say finally, Sakala to everybody. At this moment, people are afraid, they're nervous, they don't know what's going to happen. They're in the house, emotions running high. They are looking to their Islamic leadership for answers. Your leadership is critical at this moment. We're partners, and I want to say thank you very much. So, Jazakallah khair and Barakallah feek.
Imam Hassan, is it okay if we move on to our chief guest, one of our chief guests?
Yes, it's a time for our chief guest and our special guest, I can say, and the keynote speaker, Brother Joe Musmar. I attended the last 2 seminars that you organized, Brother Shahid, Jazakallah khair. I'm still willing to listen and learn. And actually, I made it this morning a few audio recordings through the WhatsApp to my colleagues, and I say, please come and benefit. Maybe you will get charged after the coronavirus. This is the free service right now. Come and benefit. So thanks so much. I think it's time to welcome Brother Joachim. Go ahead, Brother Shahid.
Okay. So in case anybody has not made it onto the call, it's being recorded, and we will send a recording to everybody. So with that being said, I have the pleasure of introducing Joey. He's a managing director of a Miller Musmar accounting firm out in Virginia. He worked in one of the two of the top 5 accounting firms. If you want to know someone who is at the ground level working on all of the SBA CARES packages, all of the questions we're already receiving about loans and what small businesses are supposed to do and nonprofits are supposed to do, we have the right man in front of us who can hopefully provide us consistent answers. I suspect every time we do this, there is some adjustment in guidelines. So yes. I'm also personally looking forward to hearing this presentation. You're up, Joey.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. You know, Imam, after you attend 3 events, you get classified in America as a groupie. So be careful. Don't attend any more of my seminars or you're going to be a groupie. I want to make sure that we have the presentation set up so that you guys can see the screen. So can you confirm that the slide deck is presenting correctly? Is the slide deck showing? Do you guys see the screen?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. So, assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm going to go through about 34 slides, but I am going to be taking all of your Q&As and really help you throughout the process. This has been an evolving process for us throughout the past 2 weeks. So even you guys, when you got these slides, you'll see there's going to be some new slides that we've inserted. And what we're going to do is go through this in a very concerted way. I'm going to cover business and not-for-profits on one side, and then I'm going to cover individuals and employees on the other side. And the whole idea behind it is to be able to allow you to really gain an understanding of all of the relief packages that exist, because there's choices and decisions to be made. You cannot ask for all of them, so you have to understand which one is which and how to go about doing that. So let's go ahead and get started through this, but I'm going to literally cover everything that's here on the agenda. So the first thing that came out is really the business provisions for people that are business owners and or self-employed, i.e. the gig workers. And the first package that came out with the first development was what is known as the EIDL loan, which is the Economic Injury and Disaster Loan. And this is a loan that you send directly to the SBA, and you can borrow up to $2 million. And this loan is really designed to be very straightforward because it's not asking you to do a lot of underwriting, but at the same time, it is part of what you need to do you can use it to pay your debt, payroll, accounts payable, and all the bills that really you were not able to pay because of the economic disaster that you have suffered. Since the entire country has been classified as a disaster zone, pretty much every business is going to qualify for this, with very limited limitations. The interesting part is that if you're a business owner, you're going to be able to get the interest as capped at 3.75%. And as long as you're using this money to run your business, to pay rent, you're going to be fine. And then if you're a not-for-profit organization, the interest rate goes down to 2.75%. Now, the way this loan application process works, and again, we recommend you hire someone to help you fill this out. You're going to fill out a form called SBA Form 5, which is a normal application. But then the SBA is going to tell you what is the amount you can borrow, which is based on a working capital model. They calculate the working capital based on the form that's on the screen, which is Form 1368. And it's very important that you get this form right, because that's what's going to determine how much money the government thinks you're going to be able to borrow from them on the EIDL loan. This is the website. Again, you click there and you can start the process. The EIDL loan is a loan that's, again, funded by the SBA. When you go through the website, you're going to see 3 steps. These 3 steps are not that complicated for you to process. You're going to have at least 2 dollar figures with you, which is your revenue for last year and your cost of goods sold or direct labor. If you get stuck and you don't know how to answer a particular question, because this is all online, you can call the 800 number that I have on the slide right here. The hotline support people at the SBA, they're very good and knowledgeable. It takes time to get to them, so you may be on hold for a while. But other than that, if you really want to go through the economic injury, a disaster loan, we have also included a hyperlink to our website that really lays this out in a succinct manner for you, so you can understand how to fill out this loan. The beauty of this loan, again, is that it's low interest. It can go as high as 30-year loan, so the payments can be really small to help you bridge any economic shortcomings that you have. So with that said, we're going to go into the new program that came out recently that has been really making headlines, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. In this particular lending program, which has many unique characteristics that I'm going to talk about, One of them is the fact that this program is designed for someone that wants to retain their staff, ergo the name, Paycheck Protection Program. And what you need to understand about it is that it's 100% SBA guaranteed, i.e. the SBA guarantees it to the bank. It has a low interest rate, which actually starts at 0.9% and is capped at 4%. It has up to a 10-year term. And what we've been seeing is if the bank gives you a low interest rate, they tend to keep it to a 2-year term loan. And if you ask for longer term, they increase the interest rate. So think of it as like a mortgage almost. But the nice part is there's no fees to pay. You basically will be going through and seeking financing, and this one is capped at $10 million. It too is based on a formula that we're going to go into detail, but just to give you the high level amount, it is 2.5 times your average 1 month's worth of payroll costs. That is going to be the amount of the loan. What really makes this appealing to everybody is that, one, you can defer the payments. You literally don't have to pay 6 to 12 months. So if you borrow the money today, you do not have to pay it back until, like, for example, if you borrowed it April 2020, your first payment can be April 2021. Interest will accrue, but it gives you a long deferral process. But that's not even the small part. The biggest opportunity of this is loan forgiveness. And loan forgiveness component is something I'm going to cover later on in the slides. The beauty of the Patient Protection Program is that you can be a business that is running, wanting to keep your staff. You can borrow this money and the government will give you loan forgiveness if you keep the staff. And I'm going to go through to explain that whole process. The Patient Protection Program also is underwritten by the SBA, but actually you go through this process by borrowing from your existing bank. And I'm going to pause a little bit here because lately in the news, there's been many things that have been happening. One, this program was supposed to start on Friday. It didn't start on Friday too well. It started on Monday. Monday, within 3 hours, banks were shutting down because they're reaching their lending limits. So if you happen to be one of those unfortunate people that has a bank account with Wells Fargo, as of Monday, has stated that they do not lend anymore on this program. Bank of America turns out that they're willing to allow you to borrow, but they need you to have not just a checking account with them, but you need to have a credit relationship with them, i.e. a credit card or a loan. And if you lack one of these two items, you will also be rejected from Bank of America. The whole idea behind this is the banks are doing the underwriting and they want to do it as fast as possible. And therefore, if you're an existing business client with these two national banks and you have a credit relationship, you should be okay. Unfortunately, Wells Fargo has exceeded their lending limit and they're literally turning people away, and that's a tough thing to be in. If you're lucky enough to be with another bank, hopefully you don't have to worry about that. So let's dive into the Paycheck Protection Program. The first eligibility, you have to have no more than 500 employees, which is straightforward. If you are an individual that is self-employed, you can actually be eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program. The opening date for self-employed individuals, because they have their own separate guidelines that they're trying to create, will actually be April the 10th. So in 3 days, you will be able to submit if you are a taxi driver who's self-employed. You are a restaurant owner who's self-employed but maybe doesn't have any staff. Well, let me say it the right way. If you own a business and you have staff, you're going to apply for the PPP based on your payroll. If you're self-employed, i.e. you are a gig worker, you're going to be able to apply on April the 10th for yourself, okay? And that's something very important to note. Third, when you go through and you look at this application, the eligibility means that you're able to submit the application. And let me walk you guys through that. I think I'm one slide ahead. So not-for-profits. 501c3s are allowed to go through and submit their application. If you happen to be a masjid, you are technically allowed to submit only right now for associated costs. So if you have a Sunday school, or you have a daycare, or a thrift shop, or a bookstore. The other communities we've been talking to that are either churches or synagogues, they're actually taking the position that they're going to still request an application with their bank to get funding, even though the rules are really not clear on whether they qualify or not as a religious organization. So that's something that's still really up in the air, and we're seeking clarity on it, and hopefully it'll come out very soon. When you go through and you do the PPP program, you have the ability to go through and get a base assessment of how long you've had staff. And let me explain that in the next slide. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit behind myself. Okay, so what is the calculation for the monthly payroll cost? The monthly payroll cost is based on how many people you have working for you as of February 15th, 2020, and at the same time, the amount of payroll you paid in January through December 2019. And when you do those calculations, you can determine the amount that you're going to owe. Not owe, you're going to get. So let's cover what is included in payroll. So in payroll right now, you will include the salaries and wages, the payment for tips, allowances, i.e. your gross wages. If you have a payroll company, the payroll companies recently have started coming out with their own calculation of what is the allowable payroll cost, and you can use that. But let's assume you're running your own payroll. You're going to calculate your payroll for the last year. You're going to determine how many people are working for you, but you're going to take that number, add to it any health insurance that you paid for as the employer. You're going to add to it what you've had on the state unemployment tax, and then calculate the average. And you'll be able to come up with that. We're going to have a slide that'll cover that from that standpoint. What is not included in your payroll, average payroll calculations, is the payroll taxes that you pay for FICA and Medicare. If you own a medical practice and somebody has a salary that's above $100,000, you will have to limit that to $100,000. And we've had questions before. They said, oh, I make more than $100,000. Is that going to be something that's excluded? We say, no, you're going to be able to get up to the $100,000, and that becomes your limit when you're calculating your average payroll. Okay?
Can I ask a quick question about the nonprofits?
Yes, Shahid.
Is the CARE Act and the loan program, what if someone does not have staff but has overhead expenses? Can they still apply?
So they can apply, Shahid, for the EIDL program, which is a pure loan relationship, and they can borrow up to $2 million if they qualify. If they are going through and looking at the Paycheck Protection Program, they will most likely not get any money because it's all based on payroll, like I've been stating. Okay, thank you. So I created a little bit of a model that shows people how to calculate the amount that they can borrow using the Paycheck Protection Program. So if you notice on the screen, we have stated the annual gross salaries of all of the staff, which you can get directly from the W-2s that you gave to your staff. And then on the right side, anybody that's making above $100,000, their number will be capped at $100,000. You take those numbers and you take the calculation, you determine that the amount of people that are making money up to the $100,000 is actually $575,000 versus the 702. Then what you do is you are going to see if you happen to have anybody working overseas, which is probably pretty rare, but here we said one person works overseas. Anybody that is working for you in Canada, for example, they cannot be part of the equation. It's designed to help only US citizens that work stateside. Once you have that calculation, you are not done, because you're going to deduct from this, you're going to add to this the employer share of the health insurance, which here in this example is $86,000. You are going to add the owner's share of the health insurance, because sometimes they're not included, so you add that back. Any retirement plan funding, like a 401k plan, a simple IRA, the profit sharing plan, if it's coming out of the employer's pocket, that gets added in. And finally, state and local tax, which is typically unemployment tax, like Minnesota unemployment tax, would be added in. Once you calculate this entire cost, which is for 2019, the entire year, then you're going to take that number divided by 12, which here in this example gives you $54,000, and then you're going to multiply it by 2.5, which gets you to $135,000, and that would be the amount of money that you qualify for under the Paycheck Protection Program. This particular model is important for you guys to use because the banks are actually going to ask you to include it in your form. And this way you can back it up and be able to have it go through the underwriting process and get it approved. I'm going to take a note on this. I need you guys to understand that a lot of people are leading you to believe that you just fill out a piece of paper and you're going to get all this money. That is not the process with the banks. We also added a lovely list of all of the documents you have to organize and give to the bank after you successfully complete your 3-page application form. And what we've been seeing is a lot of the clients that have been trying to do DIY, do it themselves, are getting rejected on their loan applications because when the bank comes back and says, give me your Form 941, give me your W-2s, give me your SUTA payments, give me how you came up with the calculation, it ends up that they did it wrong. So this list here is what you literally have to keep together so that when the bank does the underwriting, you can pass the underwriting and then you can be able to get in line to get the money allocated to you. So please keep that in mind because it is a very long list of things that you need to go through. Okay? So the most important part of this is the loan forgiveness, and everybody wants to ask questions about this. So hopefully I'll do this justice. The government is going to forgive 100% of the loan if you retain the same amount of staff as when you received the loan. Right now, the window is February 15th through June 30th. So the government literally is going to take a snapshot, and you're going to help them take that snapshot of how many employees you have on February the 15th, and is known as FTE, full-time equivalent. So you have 10 full-time people and 2 part-time, you have 11 FTE, for example. And then how much is the payroll for that window? So let's assume for those 15 people, you're paying them $35,000. That's the snapshot. You have 15 people. What did I say? $35,000. In June 30th, you will have the government take another picture. And if you've kept the same amount by June 30th of number of staff and average payroll, as long as it does not go below 25%, then you should qualify for full loan forgiveness. Okay? And what the SBA said is that their grant is they're going to allow for 8 weeks worth of time to be forgiven on this. So if you have 8 weeks worth of payroll, that's going to be the maximum amount of forgiveness you can get. Okay? If you happen to have a cancellation of debt because you've gotten other debt forgiven, that can reduce your, loan forgiveness amount. And there's other things that I'm going to cover that will reduce your forgiveness. Okay? The biggest one, which is the last slide at the bottom here, is the one I just mentioned before, which is if your payroll goes below 25%. You would then have a portion of your debt not forgiven. So any amount of loan forgiveness is calculated based on 2 formulas. And let me mention them again. Number 1, the number of FTEs that you have, February the 15th, June 30th. Is it your base is February 15th? If by June 30th you have the same amount or higher of FTEs, you should be forgiven on your debt. If it's lower, your debt forgiveness will be proportionately lowered. If you have a salary of, again, $35,000 in my example on February the 15th, and you come up with a $35,000 average salary on June 30th, you're fine. You start slipping below that, a proportion of your debt will not be forgiven. Okay? So let's compare these 2 loans head to head. You have the idle loan and you have the PPP. The EIDL loan gives you up to $2 million. The PPP gives you 2.5 times up to $10 million. The interest rate can be as high as 4% on the PPP, and on the EIDL loan, if you're a not-for-profit, it can be as high as 2.75 or 3.75. The terms of the loans are totally different between one that gives you up to 10 years, it can be 2 years or 10 years, or the EIDL loan, which can be up to 30. When you go through and you look at these loans and compare them head to head, the part you need to keep in mind is that the PPP does not allow you to get grant money and tax credits. And you haven't heard those yet. I'm going to mention them, but please keep in mind, the EIDL allows you to take advantage of the tax credits, while the PPP does not allow you to qualify for them. And if you do take the grants and then apply for the PPP, your loan balance will be knocked off based on that. Okay?
Sorry, Joey, I have a question. In that case, is it worth it to apply for both, since just the EDL is going to knock out the PPP anyway?
Yeah, so the EIDL will not knock out the PPP. So let me be very clear. You can actually apply for both, Shahid. So when you go through, you can say, I need this loan because I need money, and I need this loan because there's a forgiveness component, and if I do my job and retain my staff, I can get that loan forgiven. If you're a business that, let's give an example in real life. We have a client of ours that's a restaurant. The guy literally had to shut everything down. He's not bringing any staff on board. So he's not going to go down the PPP route. He's going to go down the EIDL route. But he's going to qualify for all kinds of tax credits. And the first one is the one right here on the screen, which is literally in 3 days you get this money. The economic injury grant is a $10,000 grant that the government will give you. You do not have to pay it back. As long as you're a business owner, you can go to the SBA website that we showed you, fill out the application for the EIDL loan, the EIDL loan, and check the box. And you literally will get $10,000 deposited into your bank account, because in the application, it asks you for the wire information to your bank. And the government is saying they'll put this immediately into your bank account in 3 days. So in order to be qualified, really, it's very straightforward. Are you a business who's existed? Have you been filing your tax returns? You're basically eligible for this $10,000 grant. Okay. Another one that exists out there is the Employee Retention Payroll Tax Credit. And the Employee Retention Payroll Tax Credit is for you to retain the staff again, and in return, the government is going to give you a tax credit for qualified wages, 50% of qualified wages up to $10,000 per employee, or in essence, a $5,000 credit per employee. So if you can actually go through the EIDL loan, apply for money borrowed from the government, and at the same time say, you know what, I want to keep my staff. I'd rather get a tax credit than go through the PPP. Maybe you don't know how many people are going to stay on board. You may not be able to bring everybody on board. The government here says, fine, you're keeping, again, you have 10 staff and you keep 6 staff on board. Well, you can get the tax credit for those 6 staff. And the government is willing to give this to you. So go through and make sure you do it. The way you qualify for this credit is going to be run through your payroll services or your payroll provider. So again, we recommend you hire a company like Paychex or ADP or any of the payroll companies. They know how to calculate this for you and be able to get you this tax credit. Now, employers who receive this credit, okay, under the Paycheck Protection Program, cannot go through and double dip on by getting loan forgiveness and this. If you get this and then you apply for the PPP, it is going to be reducing your loan. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You can't, under the PPP, you don't get this. Another rule that came out actually the first time with the Families First Act, and then was amended by the CARE Act, was the family sick leave benefits. If you happen to be an employer that's above 50 employees and below 500, okay, which should be a decent sized business, you have to comply with the Family Medical Leave Act and allow staff to go on medical leave, okay, for up to 12 weeks, and you have to pay them, okay? Now, in return, the government is going to give you credits, so don't feel bad. And another thing that they have is the emergency sick paid leave, which is the same thing, except it's available for both full-time and part-time employees, and they will be able to get paid up to $5,100 for benefits, okay? The employers, don't worry, you're going to be fully reimbursed by Uncle Sam for providing this stuff, okay? But we need you to understand that that's something that is available, and this one lasts from now, which is April 1st, this week, all the way to December 31st, 2020. So if somebody gets sick and you're an employer that has more than 50 staff, make sure you talk with your human resources, because you really need to pay the staff this money, and then you'll be reimbursed, okay? Another interesting tax credit that's out there is an additional incentive for everybody to keep their staff on board is the payroll tax deferral. Now this one, you have to be careful because it's not a grant, it's not a forgiveness, it's a deferral of the FICA and Medicare that you have as an employer to pay the government. The government says, look, anybody making wages up to $137,000, their FICA and Medicare for the rest of this year, you don't have to pay the 50% for 2020, and you can defer it for 2 years and pay it later on. So that means that you as an employer, you don't have to come up that much more money to match the payroll tax. But again, it's a deferral and you have to pay it over the next 24 months. If you're self-employed, you can actually get the same benefit, where instead of you having to make your quarterly payments, you can defer 50% of your FICA and Medicare, which again, it's designed for self-employed people. So their estimated payments on their form 1040-ES can be cut by reducing it by 50%, okay? If you are a person who has a 7A existing business loan forgiven, you cannot get this benefit, all right? Another interesting component in the law is the net operating loss carrybacks. When the law changed especially for corporations, the corporations were told, we're gonna take your 39% tax bracket and reduce it to 21%. In return, you cannot carry your losses back. This new act allows companies to go back 5 years and take their net operating loss for 2020 and bring it all the way back and be able to get a tax credit at that rate. So if you happen to be the unfortunate business owner that is losing money, keep in mind that this can be a way for you to get some serious tax refunds from Uncle Sam at higher tax brackets. And the same thing comes for individuals who are self-employed. They're now allowed to go back 3 years and carry back their losses, okay? If you have a big business, this is a big benefit for you. Other tax provisions that are out there that most of you probably already know is that, that your 1040s are not due until July 15th, 2020. Please keep in mind that not all states have followed suit. Where we work in the state of Virginia, the deadline is now June 1st, which is not July 15th. So we're having to deal with explaining to clients to get them to file on time. The interesting part that we like is the charitable contribution limitation has increased from 10% to 25%. And qualified improvement property now has a lower depreciable life. If you own real estate, I can explain that to you. And the 30% taxable income limit on business interest. Again, if somebody's seeking financing, large amounts, it used to be limited. They took the cap off on that. The
Joey, quick question about that last slide. Sorry.
yes.
So is this a federal thing, the 15 years depreciable life versus 39 years?
Yes, sir.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's very good. Okay. If, God forbid, somebody has got some really bad situation and they have to file for bankruptcy, the Chapter 11, which is for reorganization, has been streamlined to help people file, and they increased it from 2.7 million to 7.5. Federal payments received from businesses are excluded from calculations in Chapter 11, so if you borrowed money, you don't have to worry about it being included. Excise tax, you don't have to worry about that unless you're in the transportation industry. And medical providers are now can even request Medicare prepayments so they can get cash in their pocket ahead of time, and then the government will take it off through a 2-year installment period. Let's talk about the individual provisions, because for me, they affect even more people because they affect everybody. The biggest thing everybody's heard about is the $1,200 rebate. And what we're looking for in the $1,200 rebate is for you as an individual to be able to go through and get this money. Now, the federal government has stated that the US Treasury starting April 13th are going to start issuing 5 million checks a week until they pay off all of these. And you as a taxpayer have to really not do that much, because either you're going to be getting paid based on your 2019 tax return if you were able to file it on time, or you're going to get it in your 2018 based on your 2018 numbers, but it's still going to be contingent when you file your 2019. Okay? What does that mean? If I worked and I qualify in 2019 and I file my tax return, the check will come to me either in the mail, or if I did direct deposit, it'll come directly into my bank account. If I did my 18 and the government looks at the numbers and I qualify, but I did not file my 2019 1040, don't worry, you're still going to get the check. But if in 2019 you made too much money, okay, and you're above the $99,000 or $200,000 for married filing jointly, you're technically not qualified, then the government's going to want you to pay taxes or give them the money back. Our recommendation is for people to file their taxes, but at the same time, if you didn't, it's no big deal. If you are below these thresholds, you're going to get the check. For every dependent that's 17 years or younger that's sitting on your tax return, they're going to get you $500 a piece, which is a pretty good thing considering our community has a lot of kids. For the elderly or anybody receiving Social Security benefits, in the past, the government wanted you to file a tax return even though you were below the filing requirement to get this rebate. That rule has been reversed. You really don't have to do anything. The government will be able to give you that rebate as long as you have a US address and don't reside overseas. The nice part, also part of this, is they didn't forget about adopted kids. If an adopted child is part of your family, they will also be able to give you the $500 of rebate. If you do not have a direct deposit and you would like to do a direct deposit, you can actually go to the IRS's website and see if you can put in your information so the government will mail you, will not mail you a check, will deposit the money into your account. The difference is usually about 7 to 10 days. So if you really, really need this money, we recommend you do a direct deposit. If not, just wait and the check will come from the US Treasury. Again, we really want people to file their tax returns on time and not to think that they shouldn't file their tax returns. I already mentioned that the fact that the states are not going to be in all alignment. So depending on which state you reside in, you need to check to see what's their deadline, because it will not necessarily match what the IRS has. Okay? The Washington Post actually created a very nice calculator, and when you get this PowerPoint, you guys can click on it and it'll show you literally how, if you qualify or not for this rebate. Now, let's get into a couple of other things. The filing deadline we already talked about. All of this I think I already mentioned in my presentation, so I'm going to go through and skip it. Okay, charitable contributions. If you donate $300 to your masjid during Ramadan and you do not itemize your deductions anymore because you get the $12,000 or $24,000 standard deduction, the first $300 is now tax deductible. So that means I'm hoping you guys will be more generous, because God knows everybody's going to need a lot of help. But this is something that was passed in the CARES Act that benefits basically every taxpayer regardless of income.
Joey, is that per organization, $300?
It is per taxpayer, unfortunately.
Oh, per taxpayer, okay.
Okay. If you happen to be an individual who is very charitable, you can actually deduct up to 100% of your adjusted gross income and claim the deduction. So that's a different thing, because you'll be able to itemize. So Shahid, let me just explain again. If you get the standard deduction and you're going to donate a couple of $100. In the past, you don't get that because the standard deduction is higher than your itemized deduction. Now you can have your cake and eat it too. You get the standard deduction, and up to the first $300 in donations, you get that now knocked off your tax return. If you're a very philanthropic individual and you want to donate a lot, you can literally donate 100% of your adjusted gross income, and it'll all be deductible for tax purposes. If you happen to be a student, what do you call it? Federal student loans, right now they said you don't have to pay them until September 30th, 2020, which is very good. And interest will not accrue on your loan. So it's very good from that standpoint. And employers can also prepay the employee student loans without it being included in their taxable income. So if you work for a very nice boss who has a lot of money and you're a student, you can say, hey, don't give me my bonus, put this money towards my student debt, and you won't even be taxed on it. The next big thing that we really get a lot of questions on is unemployment benefits. Minnesota tends to be very generous. And if you see on the slide, when we compare it to where I reside in Virginia, the state gives you a maximum weekly benefit of $693. But wait, the federal government is actually going to add another $600 to that amount for the next periods all the way up to July 31st, 2020. So again, you can, if you're unemployed, and if you're self-employed, you can still be unemployed if you don't have a job, and therefore you will go to DEED or Human in Minnesota, apply for unemployment benefits, and the federal government will give the Minnesota Unemployment Office another $600 to give to you all the way to July 2020. So it's very, very important for you, if you're self-employed again and you're out of work, don't fret, file. And you can do this online, and we have the website for you later on that you can use to submit online for these benefits. And these start effective April 1st, and they will finish on July 31st. Okay. Other miscellaneous benefits is that if you know of someone that is on the SNAP programs, they're creating emergency or free reduced meals. HUD has suspended all foreclosures and evictions for the next 60 days. If you happen to be an individual who is sick and you need money for whatever reason, you can take money up to $100,000 out of your 401k or retirement plan, and you will not have to be subject to any early withdrawal penalty. And if you are an older individual and your entire portfolio just went south, and you're above 70 and a half years, you have something called RMD, required minimum distributions, you don't have to take them anymore. And that way, again, it'll help you. The resources that we have, including the second to last one at the bottom, is where you can apply for unemployment benefits. You also have here the SBA application for the EIDL is at the top, and then all the way at the bottom is the Patient Protection Program, Paycheck Protection Program, that gives you the application form. That currently now is outdated. If you're going to apply for the PPP, please go and speak to your existing bank. Do not shop it, because all the banks are overwhelmed. With that said, I thank you, and we open the floor for questions, Shahid.
Joey, just one question about what you just said. One of the things you mentioned very early on was about Wells Fargo.
Yes.
And you had just said that go to your existing banker and try not to shop it. But what if you are a client of Wells Fargo?
Yeah, that's the biggest problem that we're dealing with. I really do not have an answer, except maybe contacting your congressman, to be honest, because we have firsthand knowledge of clients that have been loyal to only Wells Fargo, didn't borrow from Wells Fargo, and are getting rejected by Wells Fargo. I've picked up the phone personally and spoke to many other bankers. One of the minimum rules is you have to have an operating bank account with the other bank that was opened before February 15th, 2020. And even if you have that second bank account, if you don't have the operating banking relationship and we can get you in, you're gonna be at the back of the bus, okay? The banks already made it clear that they are 400% to 500% over capacity on the applications. It is just just a rocket ship. They're trying to pay attention to their existing client base. And therefore, if somebody comes in and who is not their regular business client, they're just going to say, okay, wait. So unfortunately, that is really bad news. And I wish I could come up with a better answer. Shahid, do you have any other questions?
I see a lot of questions here, but I just want to circle back on this. So right now, I have seen online targeted ads by not necessarily banks, but by, I guess, middle brokers.
Yes.
Targeting, saying, hey, we're going to connect you to another bank, or we'll connect you to for these loans. Is that a realistic approach, or is that a scam, or what's your thought on that?
The point of it is that you have to be careful with any broker that you're dealing with, because unfortunately, they're going to try to take a lot of money from you. They may still achieve the result. I don't know. But the fees that they're charging are really not good.
Fantastic.
Okay. I saw one of the questions that came out where somebody said, if my child is 18 years old, are they going to be able to get the refund, the rebate? Well, if your child is not your dependent and they made money, i.e. they worked and they filed the 1040, they'll get the 500. But if they made the money under the table or they're your dependent, they're not going to get it. Shahid, any other questions?
Yes. So let's start with, this is, I think this is a question that's on everybody's mind. They have applied for the loan on SBA's website. How long before they get a response?
Yes. So first and foremost, when you apply for the EIDL loan, you have to get a confirmation number. If you've gone through the whole process and you did not get a confirmation number, and I think it starts with 33 or something, but it's a long digit, and you did not get it, that means you did not even get into the system. Number two, if you've got the number, you can call the 800 number on the SBA, and they will let you know when your turn is coming up, because they have a humongous backlog right now that they're dealing with. But at least you are in line, and they can tell you where you are in the process. We have been hearing dates from 3 weeks, 4 weeks, but we have not gotten any real confirmation from the SBA as to the timing right now.
I'll just share a piece of information with everybody. Today I was on a webinar with the National Restaurants Association, and they had a few thousand people on that webinar. And they did an instant poll, and they asked who has received funds, and the answer was 1.
Wow.
And that person had an existing relationship with, I think, SBA 7A.
Yeah, but had borrowed before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I have a question. What is your opinion on what masajid should apply for?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one, like I said, because we're a little bit in the gray aspect of the rules. A masjid, if they have a Sunday school, daycare, any sort of activity like this, they will still qualify for the PPP. If you are a masjid who is a pure, quote unquote, masjid that doesn't have that, you're not filing a 990, you may or may not have a double federal ID number, kind of difficult for the SBA really to give you underwriting. But the way I look at it is, it does not hurt you to ask. It does not hurt you to apply. Remember, the cost to applying is 0. So if I am a director of a masjid and I have W-2s, I have a federal ID number, I have staff that I want to keep on board, and my board of elders is okay with the PPP, I would recommend you submit. Worst case scenario, they tell you don't qualify. Best case scenario, you get it, and it's going to be completely forgiven, and now you have a grant for the masjid.
Fantastic. I think.
Following up that question, Brother Shahid, yeah, there's a brother posted here similar question. It says, I'm about to apply the PPP for non-profit organization, and there's the documents that I put together. Number 1, application. Number two, board resolution. Number 3, federal ID number. And number 4, January-based tabs. So is there anything that I'm missing?
Yes.
That's his question.
Yeah, so I think this is from Abdullah. Abdullah,
Yeah.
you are missing the spreadsheet that I put on the screen that shows how you came out with the average payroll for the 12 months and how you're going to request that. Because when you do the form with the SBA, you have to come up with two numbers, your average payroll costs, and then the amount of money you're going to be asking for to borrow, which is the 2.5 times the monthly payroll costs. So when we send out this slide to everybody that's here, take a look at my slide that lays this out and try to follow the exact template to put that as part of your supporting documentation. You can still fill out the form now, but you got to have that spreadsheet, and hopefully those numbers are going to match what you put on the application so it won't get rejected.
Brother Joe, another follow-up question, as I think you answered already, but the Wells Fargo case, here in Minnesota, mainly we have a Wells Fargo.
Yeah, West Coast.
And that's our bank. And already, some Islamic organizations went and they, closed on Sunday, last Sunday, they're not accepting any application. So what should we do? Are we wait until, they reopen, or because if we go another bank, it doesn't help. What should we do?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had an answer for this, Brother Hassan. It really is a big dilemma because, I mean, the window they opened was not even a day. It was literally counted in minutes. And they said, okay, we're done. We're maxed out. All I could recommend, this is where, again, I think government officials can help you, because I literally have our own business owners right now that we're struggling with. And I've already called all of the bankers that we know. And because they don't have a banking relationship, you can't time travel. I can't get you a bank account on February 15th, 2020 with another bank. It's really is a dilemma that I don't have an answer to. And I'm really sorry, Hassan.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, my recommendation is just to speak to your local government official and see what they can do to alleviate this. Because it is really a big dilemma. And we have Wells Fargo here, like you said, everything on the West Coast is basically Wells Fargo. So it really affects everybody in the community even more egregiously than it does here.
Yeah, it looks like we need legislative interference, or actually we need appeal,
Yeah.
The local or state representative, they should act. They should do something about this.
This is definitely a call to action, because the way I would recommend everybody in the community says, look, we're going to be irreparably damaged because of this. Everybody's getting relief except us because we banked with this bank. And if they don't resolve it, I got a feeling Wells Fargo's reputation is also going to be in bad trouble, but that's a different story.
And the Islamic organization is this that looks like this, one of the limited chances they have, to apply PPP. Is just the small window that open for them.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's just been a feeding frenzy on this. The amount of work and applications that are going in are exceeding every single bank's expectations. If you guys recall, I talked with one of the local banks, and they told me that they usually get 4,000 loans. They process 8,000 loans in 1 year, and they're expecting to process 40,000 loans in 1 week. So, yeah. Any other questions, Shahid, that we have?
So this is a little bit unrelated to the nonprofit side, but if someone owns several businesses, can he or she apply for loans for each of these businesses?
Yes, as long as the total does not exceed 500 employees, and you have to fill out the affiliation schedule. Now, the funny part is the schedule does not exist, but it's called Addendum A. You then will list your name, what percent of the other businesses you own that are affiliated with this business, and you can send individual applications for every single entity that has a federal ID number.
Okay, quick question. Will 1099 MISC be considered as a wage?
No, so if you're a recipient of a 1099, or let's say it this way, if I'm an employer and I have a lot of subcontractors, I can't treat them as my employees. So my case is separate from their case. What I would encourage is for the people that are each person receiving the 1099 to do two things: apply for the PPP and apply for unemployment benefits. They can get a lot of money, okay? Especially in Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota is very generous with its unemployment benefits, and then you add the $600 to $693 per week, that's a pretty good payment.
Fantastic. So next question, for the September 30th deadline for repaying a student loan, does that apply to people who are no longer students?
Yeah, so basically it does not matter. As long as you have a student loan and you have an obligation to make a payment, you can stop paying until September 30th, 2020. Hopefully save your money and be ready to start up again in October.
Just going over a couple of more questions. Are there any?
No worries.
So the PPP is for U.S. citizens. Does it apply for green card holders also?
Yeah, because it applies to you as residents, not
US
citizens. So if you're a green card holder or a U.S. citizen, you can apply. And I'm going to actually expand this a little bit. We have clients that are, their business can be owned by a U.S. guy and then a foreign individual. It doesn't matter. As long as the business is registered in the U.S., pays U.S. taxes, and has U.S. staff working in U.S. soil, that business can qualify for the PPP, okay? So again, the owner of the business is irrelevant as long as the business is in the U.S. and operating and hiring people on U.S. soil.
So this is a little bit of a technical question, perhaps it's a state-by-state issue, but maybe you can offer some guidance. What happens if you're an employee of a mosque, you apply for unemployment, or in general, anywhere, and you don't qualify for unemployment? So maybe you don't make the 2 consecutive quarters. What do you do?
You're basically, you won't get the benefits. It's that simple. You have to work a certain window to qualify for unemployment benefits. You don't work that window and you're out of a job, the government's not going to give you that benefit. Now, what I will always tell people is, please apply. Every time we've talked to government officials, they said the rules of the past may not necessarily apply because what they're trying to do is give people benefits. So for me, I would apply. If it works, it works. But most likely, they don't fit the criteria to get the benefit, unfortunately.
What is the window, brother? What is the minimum window?
So typically in Virginia, because I'm not familiar with Minnesota rules, you have to work 3 months. If you work for 3 months, which is 1 quarter or 90 days, and then you quit, you can qualify for unemployment benefits. Some of the states have 6 months. Some of the states have 7 months. Some of the states are limiting it by hours. So there's 50 rules for 50 locations, unfortunately.
I have an interesting question that was proposed before, and I would love your feedback. One of the major issues, because Ramadan is coming up, and we know there's going to be a huge financial strain on all of these institutions. What do you think if some of the institutions let go of their employees right now, let them collect unemployment because the benefits are so generous, and then kick in for the PPP later on, maybe for a different time period? This way, it absorbs some of the costs in the short term.
We have people that are following this strategy. So okay, what they're doing is they're saying, you know what, I want my staff to get unemployment benefits. The unemployment window covers you for a nice chunk of time, if everybody recalls. And they say, when my business gets back online, God willing, I get back online before June 30th, which means I can sort of have my cake and eat it too. My staff get unemployment benefits. If I can come back online before the deadline, then I can rehire everybody back up. And if I get the PPP, I'll even get reimbursed for doing this. So that is a viable strategy to have.
Fantastic. Just another quick question. I know you covered this already, and I'm going to share it with the presentation. The $10,000 grant, can you just go over that one more time for our viewers?
So if you are a business and you're looking to get $10,000, you will go to the SBA.gov website, and we have the link in our slide deck, and you will apply for the EIDL loan, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Okay, the SBA wants it to call us EIDL, so that's what I'm going to use. So the EIDL loan, you will apply for it, and when you go through this 3 pages, 1 page is going to be give me your bank, literally wire information, and 2, check the box if you want a $10,000 grant. You check the box. In return, 3 days will pass, $10,000 goes into your business bank account.
Do you know anyone that has received the $10,000 yet?
Yes, that one I can tell you yes. Okay. So yeah,
We just
unlike other
apply. We
stuff,
just
this one is
yeah.
easy.
We recently apply and we get the number you mentioned earlier. That starts 33.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. That means you did it right.
Yeah.
Okay. If you filled it out and you did not check the $10,000 grant, you can log back in and check the grant again. You will not lose your place in line, and that way you can get the $10,000.
Mm.
Okay. Because a lot of people sometimes they went in, they're like, no, 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 I don't want to check anything. We're encouraging everybody to go and check.
Fantastic. Joey, I know you had mentioned a worksheet that you showed us during this presentation.
Yes.
Would you be able to share that with us so we can get that out to everyone?
Shahid, of course. That would be our pleasure. We would be more than happy to share the spreadsheet, and that way people can just take it and upload it. I don't have too many instructions on it, so they're going to hopefully be able to fill it out, but more than happy to send that.
Fantastic. Hassan, are there any other questions?
I think I saw a question earlier, a brother asking a child or a youth, 18 years old, U.S. citizen outside of the country can eligible the money?
Well, you just gave the answer. They're outside the country, so most likely the answer is no. If they are inside the country, then yes, and they have a social security number. Okay.
Inside the country from time to time, or just time they apply.
So the way it works is that if an individual is outside the country and they are, and this is a dependent, Hassan, not husband and wife or the taxpayer. A dependent can be outside the country as long as they come back into the country by the end of the year. They count as U.S. Dependents. Okay, but if they spend the entire year outside the U.S., then they're not going to technically be there as a dependent. Now, one of the questions I had was somebody says, are you eligible to receive a $10,000 grant if you only apply for the PPP program? The short answer is no. If you get the $10,000 grant and then you borrow, for example, $100,000 under the PPP program, you're going to get a loan for 100, but the government's only going to give you $90,000 because, like I said before, the Paycheck Protection Program, you cannot add to it the grants because it's trying to give you such a humongous loan forgiveness component. You can't have two bites of the same apple.
Very good.
Another question brother mentioned, the PPP, can you use only payroll or you can use the lease or the rent expenses, utilities?
So remember, the Paycheck Protection Program is designed based on payroll to determine how much you can borrow. The proceeds or the use of the funds can be used to pay payroll plus leases plus utilities. No problem.
Fantastic. I don't see any more new questions. Imam Hassan, are we good to go? Are we good? Fantastic.
Is there any other questions? Please send them.
Yeah, I think if we don't have more questions, I think we're good to go.
Okay. I'm going to cover one last question I just saw come up. Amir asked, does a $10,000 grant apply to taxi drivers? So number one, if you are self-employed and you file Schedule C, as in Charlie, on your tax return, you can file for the idle loan and you can file to get the $10,000 grant. If you are a taxi driver who gets a W-2, then you cannot qualify for the $10,000 grant.
I don't know if you see Brother Saeed's question. I work for a masjid and I tried the unemployment benefit, but they told me I don't qualify. What should I do next? I think you answered already, but.
Yeah, it's difficult to know. I need to know why what was the disqualifying reason. So if he's still listening, I would like to know what they told him he failed. What was the disqualifying factor? Otherwise, I can't answer that question.
Yeah, very quick question. You already answered, I think. All of our employees, including Imam, gets W-2. Can our mosque apply PPP?
So what we said is let them try to apply through the bank. Okay, we believe that right now, my personal interpretation is masjids do not qualify if they're just a place of worship. But at the same time, we talk to our brothers in Christian community, Jewish community, they're greenlighting those institutions to apply. So please have the masjid apply for the PPP. It has a federal ID number. It can go through all the calculations and wait for the bank to give you the answer.
Fantastic, everyone. Thank you so much. I guess this was I hope this was very helpful, and I hope to keep engaged with everyone. I know for all of you that have registered, we'll send an email out to you perhaps within the next 24 to 48 hours with this webinar link, with the documents from Joey and his presentation. And if you guys have any other questions, you can please feel free to reach out to Imam Hassan, and he will go ahead and get us those questions. Everyone, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Have a good night. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakumullah khair, all of you. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to, make our work and what we learned today beneficial to all of us. And thank you, Brother Musmar.
Thank you.
The non-stop education that you give into the community. God bless you. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu
Thank you,
alaikum.
Brother Rahman.